Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On August the 1st of this year, 6 weeks ago, the European Union launched the first regulatory framework and the first legal AI Act globally. So 6 weeks in, we're going to discuss today with our panelists what this means for startups, what does it mean for investors, and what does it mean in healthcare? So the AI Act, for those of you that are less familiar, it covers every industry, including healthcare. It's a risk-based mechanism which looks at different risk levels of AI, and the main aim is to ensure that AI is safe for European citizens. In healthcare, companies that are in this space are really going to be, most of them are going to be classified as high risk in this AI Act. And what it actually means in terms of the timing is that we have 3 years in order to comply with this new regulation. So we've got until August 2027 to become compliant. For companies that don't meet this deadline, the penalties and the fines are high. Now, in terms of the AI Act, what does it actually mean for companies, working in the space? Is this really a game changer? Is this an additional layer to the MDR that we have in place today? Is it an addition to GDPR? And the answer is yes. It's an additional layer to MDR and to GDPR. And for companies that have all of those in place, it's a little bit smooth sailing in terms of the requirements that are in place today. What I'd love to do, my name's Sophie Ehrlich. I work at EIT Health, which is a public-private organization which sits in between the European Commission and the European healthcare ecosystem. At EIT Health, we support early-stage healthcare startups with Horizon Europe EU grant funding and lots of other initiatives that we support the companies with as well. I'm really delighted to be joined today by our panelists today. We have two companies that are from Spain, a company from Germany and one from Austria. And 2 of the companies have medical devices plus AI, and 2 of the companies have software only, so medical AI alone. And Anjany, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Anjany, CEO of Bonescreen. I'll try to give a bit of context of what we do so that all of us are on the same page. So we are trying to build a platform for screening the bone health. What we focus on especially is to extract information that you cannot see from a normal radiological image, CT, MR, whatnot. And if you see a bone in there, we try to extract biomarkers from there. So what's interesting here is we don't look at structural changes. We try to extract functional biomarkers from these images, and we use AI for this. And that is what I want to bring to the panel. When the AI in there is more complicated, and it's not very easy to show that it is working. I want to see, how to put it, I want to show how, we have to show to the regulators how the AI is doing its job. Mm-hmm. And thanks to EIT's support, we are very close to CE certification. Okay. We'll have the audit end of December. And so that's a fresh perspective as well. So we started our journey roughly when EU AI Act passed. So the regulatory bodies had some information about what they are supposed to do. And there were some changes probably compared to the other startups on the panel. So let's see how that aligns with the rest of the startups.
Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, EIT Health. So I'm Andreu Climent. I am engineer, electronic engineer, but I was almost born in a CAS lab in the electrophysiology units. And most of the people who is here already is close to have an age, to have an atrial fibrillation or any other arrhythmias. And if you work in a CAS lab, you discover that half of the patients that go there, we put cables inside of their heart. We burn part of their heart, but we fail. And we do not have enough solutions for the clinicians to see what they do. So that's why I was in Germany, later in the States, and we developed a technology which is able to see the heart fully, globally, in a fast way, in 10 minutes, which is Corify Care. That's the company that I set up a few times ago. We recently get the CE mark. And the great advantage which makes us unique is that we are the only ones that can show to the clinicians the heart in real time during the interventions easily and really fast. But how we did that, how we make this possible in 10 minutes, basically because the device is great, but also because there is a lot of software inside and a lot of engineers working on making something unique. And most of that unique, it's based sometimes in artificial intelligence, in databases that we need to be sure that are good enough for what we are going to help. And that's one of the important things of the regulation. And I think we will discuss about it. Thank you.
Super.
Hello there, Andreas, founder, CEO of eMurmur. We built auscultation AI. For those of you who don't know what auscultation is, it's when a provider listens to your heart and lungs using a stethoscope. What they're trying to do is to hear something that's abnormal, that should not be there, be a wheeze or a crackling lung or a murmur in heart. And what we have done is we've created an AI that can analyze heart or lung sound recordings. We got our first FDA clearance in 2019, CE marking as well under MDD at the time. Today we hold 6 regulatory clearances. Number 7 is on the way on the FDA side. So we are MDR cleared now and FDA cleared. And I look forward to discussing how the AI Act is going to impact current filings we have and future filings we are working on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordina, and I'm the Deputy CEO at MJN. We have developed the first available device in the world that is able to predict epilepsy seizures. It's a portable EEG that continuously records the electric brain activity through the ear canal, and it sends this information via Bluetooth to mobile phone, where we embed an artificial intelligence algorithm that is able to continuously assess the risk of suffering a seizure. With that, we can alert patients within 1 minute of a seizure, so we can avoid accidents, we can provide peace of mind, improving the quality of life, not only for patients, but also for caregivers. And at the same time, we're providing valuable information to doctors in order to better manage their patients. We have the CE mark, MDR, UKCA, and we have a contract for distribution in Europe in 32 countries with the pharmaceutical companies, so currently selling in Europe and trying to jump to the US with the FDA. And yes, happy to talk about the new AI Act, new regulation, as we are struggling with the FDA, so that would be nice.
Super, super. On the AI Act, some of you may be sitting in the audience thinking, we're a company based in Boston, how does this apply to us? So actually the AI Act applies to either European or any global companies that are deploying AI in the European region. So it applies to everybody. In terms of the AI, the European Union's definition of AI, this is something that I really recommend everybody to take a look at, because what we can all call AI might be slightly different from what the European Union defines as being AI. So there may be companies here that may not need to apply for this new regulation. So that's certainly something to take a look into, and that's all publicly available online. In terms of what this means for you as companies, has this new regulation that's been in effect for 6 weeks, it's brand new, has this changed anything that you're doing, any of the work that you're working on? Kind of how's this, in the past 6 weeks or past few months, have you done anything, are you doing anything differently in your companies? Andreas, maybe we'll start with you.
Well, we started researching it, partially driven by the deadline that came up today. So as a medical device company who has CE marking, the way the system works is that the AI Act is built on risk classifications, and automatically, if you are a class, I think 2A, 2B, or higher in Europe, you classify as a high-risk device in the AI Act, meaning it applies. And we looked at this broadly in terms of what does that mean in terms of what we have to do and when do we have to do it by. So in terms of timeline, we have 3 years as a medical device companies for this to be implemented. And most of what's required is already part of being regulated under MDR, except it's not harmonized yet. So meaning that within our quality management system we've built for MDR, we still have to show that we are compliant now with the AI Act on top of it. And there's a set of rules that are not part of MDR that we'll have to add in addition to what we're doing today. But overall, I'd say as a medical device company with clearance, we're in a pretty good spot because a lot of the big work we need to do setting up the quality management system and the whole risk management is already in place, versus other companies might be affected that don't have that yet today.
Okay, super. Jordina, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing at MGN.
So when it came out, I guess as every company, we said, oh, no, another regulation that we have to go through. So the first thing we did is we tried to understand what's this about, and we talked with our regulatory experts. So we understood if we fit in or not. Are we AI as European Commission understands AI? Yes, we are. And then we said, okay, now let's go through what do we need. So there are lots of tools available that you can use in order to understand which is the work you need to do to be compliant with this AI Act. And what we found out is what Andreas said. If you have the MDR with a medical device, you are like 93% compliant with the AI Act. This doesn't mean that we don't have to work. It means that we have lots of things in place, but we have to still work to be compliant. So what we did so far is to understand it, get to know a little bit about it. As you said, there are no experts on that. So we just managed to understand it and to understand what should we do and how many times do we have to do it. And just, as we say, start the engines to be prepared and to start one of the first ones, because we foresee that this will be a huge thing and regulatory bodies will be overwhelmed. So we have to be the first ones in the line, because if not, it will take a long time. So that's what we did.
So ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Anjany, what about a Bonescreen?
I think we were lucky. 2 reasons. We have been hearing about the AI Act for almost a year now, right? Or probably more than that. And I think we started our regulatory journey right about when we started hearing about these things. So we started preparing for it. And second point is we are based in Germany and we love regulations. So I think there's a working body of all the notified bodies in Germany who came up with this very long list of, they call it the AI guideline checklist. Mm-hmm. And it covers different parts of different regulations. It brings in MDR, 62304, the risk management and all that. And it adds a lot of questions in the form of checklist. Do you have this? Do you have this? And so on. So it took us almost, I don't know, a week to fill this checklist of just saying, okay, this is here, this is here. Because we worked with this checklist, I think we were already pretty prepared for this. Mm-hmm. So I'd imagine we still have some work to do, but definitely not as much.
Mm-hmm. Super. And for anybody here, this AI checklist is actually publicly available. It's IG-NB, and if you look for the latest version, it's been put together by the German Notified Body Association. And even if you're not a German company, it's still quite a helpful checklist to take a look at to see whether your AI fits this criteria or not. If you do seem to align to most of it, you're probably, it should be pretty positive, but it may also highlight, areas where maybe more work needs to be done. But it's certainly a good source to take a look at, and happy to send you the link if anybody wants to reach out to me afterwards. So it sounds as though, it's not a huge change. It's not, it's not a big change. It's an additional layer. I guess the strawberries on the cheesecake. So it sounds as though you very quickly you've been looking into this and understanding what you need to look for and what is more relevant and less relevant. So I guess in order to understand what the criteria is, because this is a new act, we don't yet have, there is no one expert that can really guide a company to say everything that's needed. But I guess here we're looking at a group. So law firms have tremendous knowledge. Notified bodies have tremendous knowledge. At EIT Health, we can, of course, provide additional support. But it's also within the ecosystem, companies speaking to other companies to try and understand what this new regulation means. And I think it's really, especially in this next 12 months, it's going to be the power of the ecosystem to help us all navigate together what this actually means, because it is new. And as we all understand in innovation, being the first is exciting, but it also, has challenges, and nobody's really been there or done that before. So I think there are many more questions than answers today, and it's a question of understanding this through the months to come. One of the things to highlight in terms of notified bodies can apply to support companies from November this year. So it's going to take time for the notified bodies to actually be able to work on supporting companies with the approvals. In addition, each European member state, each country, has 12 months in order to set up their national governing bodies in order to be able to enforce this regulation as well. So we're really talking about it's going to take months, especially in this coming year, for the setup of this to be kind of more established. If we think about fundraising, and if we think around, you're all fundraising today, have investors asked you about this in their diligence? Has this kind of topic come up yet? It is new, but just out of interest, is this something that you're being asked about? And maybe Anjany, I'll start with you.
We are looking for a seed. We are looking to raise seed round around 1 or 2 million, and we have not been asked anything specific. I think till now they're just more interested in CE and MDR. Mm-hmm. So yeah, probably it will change the more we speak to, or at least as time passes, because it has just been 6 weeks, right? So yeah,
it's early
days. You have to see.
Yeah, okay.
In our case, we recently closed a Series A, and it wasn't one of the important questions. As we are a technology-driven company, so our AI algorithms are one of the important assets, although we are a medical device with a disposable. And they have some questions, but mainly during the due diligence, as soon as they go in deep into the cybersecurity, they go in deep into how the MDR software is working on, they go in deep into the checklist about AI, and more or less that they wanted to learn, okay, how do you plan to be compliant with this new regulation, and how much is going to cost? So probably these two questions came, and we try to answer, guessing.
Okay. Okay.
We are currently doing a 2.5 million Series A round, and I also have not been asked by investors, but I do make sure that I bring it up, because in our case, I think it's advantageous for 2 main reasons. Since we already have the CE mark and the MDR, the investment needed to build a system like this ground up has already happened. The ongoing addition by, let's say you now have the audit is a bit more expensive. That's part of the regulatory budget anyways. But the other reason is that our AI models that are cleared have been trained, have been validated, have been tested. The requirements around that part of the framework within the AI Act is quite different than under MDR. And so if I had to start today with the AI Act in place, the investment needed to be compliant would be much higher than what it was for us at the time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, we are now raising 4 million round, and I only had one investor asking for it, but I have to say that it was on a meeting where they were talking about the AI Act, so it made sense that this person was asking about the AI Act. The other investors I've been talking with, I'm making it aware that, hey, we are aware of that, so we are in the MDR and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's normal they are not asking about it because it's super new. I mean, 6 weeks. It launched 6 weeks ago, and as you said, no one is an expert, and it's 1 year to come that we will understand it. So it's a topic that I guess that when we close around with the due diligence, I will make sure that everything is ready for this new AI Act. Mm-hmm. And as you said, we are one step ahead because we have the CE mark under the MDR. And this is, as you said, the strawberries in the cheesecake. So it's another layer that it has to be placed, but it won't be that hard as if we started from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, interesting. So in terms of fundraising, understand it's not yet in the full DD. It will be, it should be. It's certainly one of, regulatory aspects is certainly something that the investors dive into as part of the diligence, and it will be a part of it. And it's certainly a good indication for investors to start asking about it, to understand if the companies that they're meeting with are aware of kind of where they stand with this, or if they're starting to look into this themselves. In terms of costs, as we all know, another regulatory approval is going to take time out of your time, your team's time. There might be additional costs working with, external advisors. How are you thinking about these costs? Are you fundraising a little bit more than you originally planned to kind of compensate for this? And just to give you a little bit of insight on the estimated cost, the European Commission have estimated that the costs for an SME to become compliant with the AI Act, this isn't healthcare specific, it's AI in general, may be up to 400,000 euros. Now that's assuming they don't have a quality management system in place, it's assuming they're starting from day one and that they don't have other approvals that have some elements of this in place. So it's really kind of a high number, but that's estimated in an impact report of the estimated costs of becoming compliant. At the end of the day, we're all going to know how much this costs 3 years from now, calculating backwards to see really how much, was spent on this. But what are your thoughts around this as you're, looking at your cash runway, your fundraising, share that with me.
I think audits are expensive. Yeah, and the more regulations we have, the more money we have to pay. That's the naive view on it. On top of this, I think, as Jordina and Andreas were saying, right, we are not starting from scratch. So this is some budget we already put in, we already account for. And probably because we are already doing this, the extra cost is a differential, I guess. Probably the more experienced have a different perspective, but we have already accounted for this, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Try to look at this as an investment. Let's tell it in that way. So we are making an effort to become compliant with a regulation that is trying to make patients safer. So that makes our companies a little bit more prepared for what is coming on. So everyone will have to pay for it, sooner or later. So the sooner we do it, probably the easier it will be. Because we will learn, we will make the path, and then later, as that happens with MDR, the first companies that had to fight with it, it was difficult, but later was the one that succeeded. So I think it's not going to be as much more expensive that it is already MDR to get it.
Because it's the additional layer, it's not something brand new.
Exactly. So I don't think it's something that fully changes. We are software companies. The last regulation in software already made much more complex to explain all the software to the notified bodies. So we already had to do that. That's another layer. Okay, now you have to explain the databases. Now you have to explain how you train it. Now you have to, all these kind of things. It makes sense to some extent, but it will take money, of course.
I agree. I think the cost question, if I step back from what we do at my company, it depends on your product, and it's important to understand what is qualified as AI. So I myself was surprised to learn it's also logic-based systems. So if your product uses some decision tree as part of the software, you qualify as AI, which I assumed AI and machine learning were fine. For us, it doesn't make the difference because we do machine learning. But if I had a product that utilizes some decision tree, I would not have been regulated on the MDR the way we are, but now I have to adhere to the AI Act, which would be, I think, much more expensive than the number quoted before. So for us on a regulatory, on an annual basis, the increase is going to be there, but it's not going to be too significant, I'd say. Of course, if you look back, what the audit cost under MDD, MDR times 3, and now plus the AI Act next year, it does add up over time, that's for sure, for smaller companies.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's what Anjay said. More audits, more money, more regulatory, more money we have to spend. So we are always thinking on that. And we as a medical devices company, we are super used on spending lots of money on regulatory. I mean, this is what we've chosen. This is the environment we work on, and we are very used on that. So as I said, we were scared at the beginning, then we understood it's another layer in the cake. So we compare it with the UKCA. So first, with the MDR, it was one audit, 1 day. Now we have 1.5 days because we have to have the audit for the MDR and the audit for the UKCA. Okay, now it will be maybe 2 days, 2.5 days. We know we have to work. We know we have to save money for that. It will be more money. And as you said, with the MDD, it was this money. With the MDR, it's this money. With the UKCA, it's this money. Now with the AI Act, it's this money. But on the other hand, it's a stamp of quality. I mean, and it's a competitive edge. So, okay, we can see it on a value for our product, on a value for our services. So it's a double-layer sword, let's say. So it's good for one thing. It increases costs. But as we said, it's not that I'm super scared of this 400K because everyone will feel like, okay, it's 400K. No. For example, we, and I speak as we as a company, as a medical device class 2, it's not going to be 400K. It cannot be. I'm sure that those companies that only have software, it will be more than 400K. Because if I look at the cost of getting the MDR, it was much more than 400K. So if this is the equivalence, they'll spend lots of money on that. I'm sure about
The
it.
estimated cost is not for healthcare, for AI becoming compliant in general for SMEs. So, you know, it's a kind of average number, but I guess from what I'm hearing, you know, this number doesn't really resonate, and you think it's going to be a lot lower given where you're at and what you've done so far on this path as well. But Jordina, you were mentioning here, you know, you see this as a positive, giving you a competitive edge. How do you all see, you know, let's say 3 years from now, you've got the AI approval. How do you see this as you're scaling your companies?
So for me, it has benefits. Like, as I said, it's a competitive edge, another barrier for competitors, which for us, it's good. It also, it's a quality stamp, so it will make professionals feel more safe. So now when you go to a professional, to a physician, they ask you, do you have the CE mark? Yes, okay, so I trust your technology. So they will ask, do you have the AI Act? Yes, so now I trust your technology, so quality stamp. And then I think it will help us on entering new markets. So we are going through the FDA, it will help us on the FDA, and when we go to China, it will help. So I think in 3 years, let me say in 5 years, it will be a good thing for the companies that we went through that process.
I agree. I think it adds a moat, another layer around it. Regulatory is one, the AI Act is another. I think the details, some of it is still open and out there. Harmonization is supposed to come next year, May, around May, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think around May is when the first harmonization is going to come out, which will be important to understand the impact it has. And then again, as a company with 3 CE marks under the hood, and with the AI Act now being law, from a competitive advantage, it is significant. Because it's one thing to say, I can create an algorithm that can analyze heart and lung sounds, and here's my sensitivity and specificity. But it's another thing then to be able to file this and show, going back from the beginning, that you have adhered to all the regulations, how your data was collected, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, I think it's a positive once you're at where we are at.
Always, when you think about regulation, it's difficult to find, okay, this is positive. The first thing that you say may not be that, oh, okay, this is something that is going to be complex. And it's scaring. But at the same time, if you think about AI and artificial intelligence, we are just at the beginning. So all the people here doesn't know what will be in the technology in 3 years from now. But all of us are scared a little bit. So we need that kind of regulations. And the European Union has made a great innovation with this regulation. And regulations, to many aspects, are drivers of innovation, because they will put the walls, but also they will put the doors. And we will learn before other regions of the world where are the doors, or where are the windows. So how to make our companies, our devices, to go through these kind of regulations, and how to succeed in that. So, of course, it will be a little bit harder at the beginning, but at the same time, probably it will train us to be competitive internationally. And that's what I want to think.
Mm-hmm. I think it will be the harmonization, touching upon everything that the other guy said. The moat is a very important point. And for me, I think it's the perception of it. You'll always have people, especially in our case, it will be the doctors, right? There will be a group of doctors who will not like AI. The hope is that regulations like this will bring them under the fold, saying, okay, this is regulated. The EU has looked at this. There's a stamp of quality, and now I'll trust this a bit more than I would have earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the hope. And also, this would generalize to other countries. We already see during our initial investigations that there is some similarities between the FDA's machine learning files and the AI Act's requirements. So the hope is that they get a lot more harmonized, so that the work we have to do is mostly replication after that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a step towards a better future as well.
Yeah. So I think the potential of AI in healthcare, to transform healthcare is huge. And as you mentioned, the trust by hospitals, clinicians, patients alike, and the safety aspects, this, becoming compliant and getting this new AI approval will almost mitigate some of that concern. And hopefully it will help, for more AI healthcare products to be deployed, both in the European region as well as globally once other regions, launch their new regulations regarding AI, which we're seeing, other regions are working on this, and it's all coming. So this is the first. Which means, you're the brave ones that are working to get the approval here and to figure this out, together with our support, notified bodies, law firms, and the power of the ecosystem. And hopefully it will open the doors in lots of other regions as you scale afterwards. But I think in summary, if for other innovators in the audience, what would you suggest from your initial experience here so far for other companies to do if they haven't looked at this yet?
I would say don't procrastinate, start working. I mean, it's complex. It's a complex thing, and I understand it can be scary, but you have to understand it. And I would suggest everyone to first just settle it down. For example, the EIT is offering great free workshops on that, and they are showing what the AI Act is. So first understanding it, and then understanding if the company fits, and then understanding what's need to be done. So not waiting these 3 years, I think, would help companies a lot.
Yeah, I think I would say, so I see how FDA handles this and how Europe handles this. And I find some of the things the FDA does is very much forward-thinking, and I'm hoping that's going to apply here as well. So with AI, there's this concept of locked algorithms, right? So in the FDA, the way it used to be a few years back when we got our first clearance was we had one model, whatever, to find a pathologic murmur in this patient. If we make an improvement, you're not allowed to just release the improvement. It's a new model. You have to go back to file another 510K. But now they introduced something like a PCCP, a predetermined change control plan, where you can tell the FDA, here's my plan for how I'm going to validate internally that my improvement is safe. Once they approve that PCCP,
we can now do this without having to do a new filing each time we make improvement on the algorithm. That doesn't exist on the European side yet, and that's, I think, where I'm hoping that Europe can learn a few things from the FDA. It seems to be a bit more industry-driven versus a top-down approach here. And the last thing I want to add that we haven't discussed today is cybersecurity. So it's another, maybe for young companies, interesting. Also on the FDA side, the new cybersecurity regulations are significant. We are going through our third FDA filing now. And the work required to be compliant there was massive, really massive for a small company. And that is something on the EU side we have not had to do with to that extent. Even on the GDPR, we weren't nowhere near that. It was just that not that much work. So I'd say as a European company, I'd still go for Europe first, but make sure to think about the FDA side when you build up the system, because I'd say there's an 80% overlap, and the rest you can design it smartly from the beginning to save you the work to do parallelization later.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. I think that we are just at the beginning. So we are, some of them have more experience, but most of the companies are quite new in these technologies. And most of the devices that are using artificial intelligence are not yet in the real market or are not yet globally exposed. This is going to be like when computers started. So this is something that is going to be everywhere. So every single company will have it. So as soon as you may be right now thinking, okay, I'm not really using AI. Forget about AI because let's say that we do not use AI. That's something that we are afraid of, companies that may say, we do not go in that direction. But I will say exactly the opposite. So this is the way to, okay, how to do in that direction. We will need AI for sure in any software company. We will need it, almost in any, and any medical device. So let's make use of this to start as soon as possible and be the ones that are ready to make it. And new models will come, new technologies will come, and we will need to be ready to make them a product and make it in the market.
Mm-hmm. Advice for new companies. I think I'm a bit too blue behind my ears, but I think if you're passionate about your solution, I think this is just one more hurdle. If you look at it as a hurdle, if you're more passionate about the solution and you want users to use it, I think you can push through. And I think there is an ecosystem that will support this. EIT, like you mentioned, there are investors who know about this. There are grants you can apply. So if there is effort, for sure, there is financial burden, but if you account for this and if you really want to see your solution being used in real world, I think you should go for it. And all these landscapes will be changing. They have been changing forever. So that should not stop you. Because I've heard a lot of startups say this. The first time I tell them I'm in medtech, I'm in healthcare, like, oh, the regulations must be a pain. I'm like, yeah, of course, but I still want to build that one solution.
But this AI regulation is for all industries.
Yeah, true.
It's not just for healthcare. So I think really for companies, stop procrastinating. Yes, there are 3 years and there is time, but there isn't really. So just understanding whether your AI fits the definition is certainly a first step. Speak to your notified body to understand if they're going to be applicable here, if they're going to be working on the AI approvals or not. If not, then you're going to have to rethink which organizations you're working with. Speak to your law firms, speak to everybody that has, some insight on this is certainly a suggestion. And for investors, your portfolio companies, should start thinking about this. And when you're looking at new investments, it's probably good to add this into the DD to start looking at these things. But I do think it's exciting. I think AI can transform and improve healthcare tremendously. And looking forward to a safer and more trusting environment. Thank you very much. Thank you.